Welcome aboard! We will be your guides during this magical journey into the movies. It's the perfect job for us because we love the movies. It's showtime! Ready when you are, CB!
Action!
Welcome to Monoreel Radio, episode number 336. I'm Sean.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are here this week to review and discuss Captain America Brave New World. This is the newest installment of the Captain America series. Seeing as we saw it in theaters and we absolutely loved it, we were excited to sit and watch it again, and we figured when better than 4th of July week to sit and talk about our favorite American captain.
Well, you know we love a theme week, so who are we not to capitalize on this and celebrate America's birthday in style? The other thing that I've been really looking forward to with this is revisiting Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because you and I had watched it on its initial release, and we were kind of hot and cold on it, because I remember that we liked them bringing Zemo back. We thought that that was pretty cool, but I think we were sort of leaning on the side of don't love it because we found the villain really annoying. And I remember as soon as we left the theater, I said to you, I can't wait to rewatch Falcon and the Winter Soldier again, because this film gives so much levity to all of the character work they did in that series. That's not to say that you will be lost if you've not watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier and you're gonna and you're interested in watching this, but we'll talk about how one sort of plays into the other.
And frankly, it's not just Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You need to, and I say this, I think you need to watch The Incredible Hulk. In research for this film, I remember seeing that a lot of what they had picked up on here were things that they had laid the groundwork for back in 2008 in Ed Norton's Incredible Hulk, which, because of the recasting and because it was so early on in the MCU, so many people, I hate to say it, have sort of forgotten about that film.
Or sort of written it off because it never got a trilogy.
You have to watch that, frankly, to understand what's going on here. I don't think you need to watch Falcon and Winter Soldier quite as much. I think because we know at the end of Endgame, right, that Sam gets the shield passed over from Steve Rogers. He obviously has the shield at the start of this film. Now, there is a lot of things that happen in between that, yes, Falcon and Winter Soldier talks about all of that. But as odd as it sounds, I feel like Falcon and Winter Soldier is more of a precursor for Thunderbolts, and The Incredible Hulk is more a precursor for this. Whether that was intentionally done or not, I have absolutely no idea. But with all of that being said, how is this film tonally different from other Captain America films? And would we like to see this story sort of built upon and expanded on and keeping Captain America moving forward? That, on top of many other things, is what we are here to discuss today.
This episode is sponsored by Fierce Fox Co., designers of handmade silkscreen shirts. Fierce Fox has a t-shirt, tank top, hoodie, or crew neck for every fandom. So whether it's the movies or theme parks, princesses or villains, the MCU or Star Wars, everyone will find something they love. The designs range from subtle quotes from our favorite films to iconic characters we can wear proudly in so many different styles, such as sketchbook and concert tees. An honorable mention to the Till the End of the Line Captain America Bucky shirt that I love so much. That is always like my 4th of July week shirt that I will be wearing out. Listeners of Monoreel Radio can get a 20% discount using the code Monoreel at checkout. Visit fiercefoxco.com to check out all of the collections.
Thaddeus Ross has been elected president, while Sam Wilson has taken over as Captain America. In Oaxaca, Mexico, Sam and Joaquin Torres are sent to stop the sale of classified items which were stolen by the Sidewinder. While they do retrieve the items, Sidewinder escapes. To help Joaquin train as the new Falcon, Sam introduces him to super soldier Isaiah Bradley, who had previously been imprisoned and experimented on by the U.S. government. Isaiah and Ross have an icy relationship, however, Sam wishes to bridge the gap with him as a sign of hope, so he convinces Ross to invite Isaiah to attend an event at the White House with him and Joaquin. At a summit of world leaders, Ross announces the discovery of adamantium on Celestial Island in the Indian Ocean, and how he wants all nations to have access to this precious metal. He also tells Sam that he wants him to reboot the Avengers. During Ross's presentation, Isaiah, as well as a few other Secret Service agents and active military, open fire on Ross. While no one kills Ross, they are all arrested. Sam defends Isaiah, saying that he couldn't have done this independently and asks to investigate what happened. However, Ross and his head of security, Ruth, refuse to allow him to do so, so Sam recruits Joaquin to do it themselves. Sam visits Isaiah in prison, who tells him that his phone wasn't working and he has no memory of the assassination attempt. He also asks Sam to not return so as to not ruin his own life in the process. Joaquin reviews security video, as does Ruth separately, and each notice that the shooters had flashes of light on their phones that seemingly hypnotized them before the shooting. Later that day, Sidewinder attempts to kill Sam. He tells Sam that his buyer had of the previously stolen items had filled him in on everything related to Sam and then hired him to kill Captain America. Sam defeats him, and the buyer calls Sidewinder's phone and congratulates Sam. Joaquin tracks the call to Camp Echo 1 while Ross attempts to negotiate the adamantium agreement with the other world leaders. Ruth goes to the prison where Isaiah is and watches a hypnotized soldier kill the other suspects before himself, and hears a song playing through his radio. Ruth takes Isaiah to protect him, and Ross tells her that Camp Echo 1 has been compromised after speaking with the buyer on the phone. At the camp, Sam and Joaquin meet the buyer, Dr. Samuel Stearns, who was exposed to the blood of Bruce Banner, leaving him disfigured and having now this very much advanced intelligence. Ross has been holding him at Camp Echo 1 to have him work for the government, but he has now cut off his research and is going back on his word to release him after becoming the president. Ruth arrives and helps rescue Sam and Joaquin before more would-be assassins can kill them. The Japanese, meanwhile, blame Ross for the events at the summit and look to take the adamantium for themselves, so U.S. troops mobilize to take the metal for themselves as ordered by Ross. Sam, Ruth, and Joaquin meanwhile travel to meet with the Sidewinder, who tells Sam that Ross exposed Stearns to more gamma to make him smarter, and that he had been hired to steal Japan's adamantium so that they could pin the entire thing on Ross and start a war. They head to the Celestial Island, where Sam tells Ross of Stearns' plan and the mind control technology that he has developed, and warns that he had information on President Ross, and he wonders why. Ross admits that he was suffering from heart failure, and Stearns developed pills to save him, and that he blamed Stearns for the Hulk and Abomination event in Harlem years prior as collateral damage. He also admits that all he has done has been to salvage his reputation and save the relationship with his daughter Betty. Meanwhile, Stearns uses mind control on 2 U.S. pilots and attacks the Japanese fleet. Sam and Joaquin intervene to end the conflict while Stearns tries to goad Ross into, as he says, letting his monster out. Joaquin, however, is left badly injured after the fight. Bucky arrives to be with Sam as he worries about Joaquin and admits that he should have taken the super soldier serum, leading him to question his role as Captain America. We learn that Stearns has been using Ross's pills to secretly expose him to gamma radiation. At a press conference, reporters grill Ross on accusations of the conflict as well as his relationship with Stearns, causing Ross to lose his temper, turn into the Red Hulk, and attack the White House. Sam arrives to fight off the Red Hulk and is nearly killed. They end up at DC's Cherry Blossoms, which remind Ross of Betty. Sam then calms him down, and Ross returns to normal. Isaiah is then freed from his prison. Ross resigns as President of the United States, and the Celestial Island Treaty is signed. Ross remains confined at the raft out in the middle of the ocean, where he is then visited by Betty?
I have a couple of top line notes that I want to start with because I think they're going to, play a big part in our overall discussion and how we feel about this film. The first being, one of the things that really struck me was how many writers have credits on this film. And I thought that might be having to do with, because this was so ingrained from Incredible Hulk, I thought maybe there was a script that was starting to be developed for the sequel that never saw the light of day, and they sort of rolled it into this one. But most of the writing credits are from the writers of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. But what really, why I think that's so noteworthy is because for so many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, this film feels so cohesive.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that has to do with we're out of the multiverse, finally. But it also has to do with, by and large, this is centrally located in DC and the surrounding areas, except for the Celestial Island, which we're going to talk about. But I think that also really lends to it feeling so cohesive and playing into the genre of it being a political thriller. So to me, this is just such a good Marvel reset. And I think it was very intentional to be like, all right, we're out of the multiverse now. We're going to pick up, this is post blip. So now we're really going to check in with what's going on stateside instead of as this pertains to the entire universe. So I love how they get us in. We learn that Ross is now president. He's making a speech and he's got the word together, big bold letters behind him, which was essentially what his entire platform was based on to get him elected, was that he wanted to unify everybody after the blip. So it totally works for Marvel, but I love the reflection of reality because it is so realistic, right? There's always a political buzzword. So I thought this was just such a great reset. The only thing that I bump on a little bit is that, Thaddeus Ross's character has been with us, not since Civil War and the Sokovia Accords. He goes all the way back to Incredible Hulk, like you mentioned. And I feel like it's unfortunate that they lost William Hurt, who played him all those years.
Yeah.
And obviously they recast Harrison Ford, but I think the casting of Harrison Ford and being like, we got Harrison Ford in the MCU kind of overpowers the huge character arc that is taking place with Thaddeus Ross.
I think it makes sense that you would get Harrison Ford in this role because this movie is so tonally different from so much of what we have seen in Marvel up to this point in time. To your point, it is a political thriller. And yes, in the mid-90s, we saw Harrison Ford do a lot of these thriller-esque movies, right? So I think that you sort of needed him in the role. And I think it was important for the exact thing that you just mentioned. The multiverse really mucked up a lot of things. People liked it more in theory than they did in execution.
Absolutely.
I think because of everything that happened with Jonathan Majors and Kang being out the window, you needed to wipe the slate clean. And I think that going with a tonally darker film that doesn't have you going in and out of different dimensions, in and out of portals, to your point, it's DC, it's Virginia, and it's the Indian Ocean. I mean, yes, you go to Oaxaca, Mexico in the beginning, but otherwise, we talked about Black Widow, right, a couple of weeks ago. Think about how many different places that movie takes you to.
You needed a non-globetrotting film.
Yes, and I think that this was the perfect way to do that. And I think that getting Harrison Ford in here, I think it's understated as to how smart that decision was in the recasting.
Well, I think that's why it overpowers everything else, because it's like, we got Harrison Ford and we're going to make him Red Hulk. And that was given away in the trailer. And I think that was so much the focus. it really took a couple of viewings to see how nuanced this is as far as what they laid out for Thaddeus Ross and how they were able to pick up all of the threads throughout all of his appearances, and really make a solid character arc. Like I totally buy what's happening here because that's he's been an antagonist to the Avengers the entire time. Sometimes he works with them, sometimes he doesn't, but it's always been for own personal gain, and that rings true through this entire film.
Well, you needed to plus him up a little bit, right?
Yeah. Because
up to this point, you'll laugh, but it is a good comparison. It's like the mayor in Ghostbusters.
Oh, here we go.
In the first, it's always the same thing. It's, I don't know what they're doing. We don't want them around. We're too dangerous. And then things get out of control. And it's like, well, bring them back, call them in because nobody else is going to save us. We need them. Ross does the same thing with the Avengers.
Yeah.
We need them. They're too dangerous. Get rid of them. Oh, no, we can't handle this. All right. Call the Avengers in. It's the exact same thing. So I don't think you could lather, rinse, repeat it again. I also think that you see this so often in the real world where you have somebody that is a figurehead in politics, and when they've kind of reached the top of the summit in the one thing that they're doing, what's the next logical step? I'll run for president. So the fact that Ross did it, and the fact that he was able to change the political landscape because he was able to reinvent his image, all the while, it's not because he's trying to really chase anything. It's behind the scenes. He's trying to rehabilitate a relationship with his daughter and prove that he's not the bad guy that they set him up to be with her in The Incredible Hulk. Like, it's so layered.
Well, yes and no, though. He's also trying to cover up his dirty little secret. But I have a note on that when we get to it later, because there's a specific scene where I feel like the true colors really show. I want to talk about, speaking of plussing up, let's talk about Sam here.
Yeah.
I love that he has got the best of both worlds. He got to keep Falcon's gear, but they incorporated Cap's shield in a new way with a little bit of Wakandan flair in the wings. I love it. I love his opening fight sequence. It's great.
It's a great intro for him. I think it's a great intro for Joaquin as well. Now that he's sort of becoming the Falcon. I think that it sets up a good spot for both of them. And it introduces Sidewinder, who plays a fairly large role in the MCU. But what this does very well is that it sets up the fact that it's a bait and switch. You think from the jump, the Sidewinder is who we're going to be chasing the entire film because he is the big bad. And that's not at all what happens. He mentions the buyer. You just assume, oh, it's the buyer. That's why the Sidewinder's here. Having no idea how this movie is going to flip on its head later on. The whole thing is just very well done.
I love how Sam is questioning it from the start. He knows that something's awry. He calls it out immediately that, why would you arrange this exchange in the middle of nowhere? What's really going on that you have everybody converging on this one spot? And if you didn't bring us to this remote area to kill us, what are you distracting us from? And that's where, again, it really lends to the thriller of it all, because it's not, that Thaddeus is going to Hulk out later. You're going to get that big action sequence, but I love that there's a whodunit element right from the beginning. So you mentioned that Joaquin is starting to train up to be Falcon, because obviously at this point, Sam is officially Captain America.
Yeah.
But he's still got his Falcon wings, but they are sort of passing the Falcon baton over to Joaquin, who I love. He was introduced in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. But again, even without having seen that, he's just such a well-written character, and their friendship is so good playing off of each other. You get from the chemistry, you get their history together. Obviously, they're both military too, so like they have that bond from the beginning. And if you've not seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, that's the relationship that you're able to pick up on, is just they're brothers because they have fought beside each other. So I really, really love that. And I love that Joaquin is getting a bigger part. Also from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they revived the character of Isaiah Bradley, who is so complex and so layered. Sam brings Joaquin to him to learn how to fight because he's a super soldier. And, you know, they go to his boxing. I think we're supposed to take away. He owns this boxing facility. Because I can't remember if they had him there in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think he was living in Baltimore, I want to say.
Yes.
Because Sam's hometown is Louisiana.
Right.
So we do get the backstory with his family in Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I can't remember if we had the boxing ring yet, admittedly. But anyway, Isaiah and Sam do have a relationship. They have a history together. Isaiah has been sort of a paternal figure to him, which really comes out. Again, I was talking about the character work in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You know, where Sam is really struggling. Can I pick up the shield? Can I take on this role? He really goes to Isaiah for advice, especially with what Isaiah dealt with having been imprisoned and the treatment that he received after serving his country. So in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they really deep dive into it, especially, you know, what it means to be a Black man in America and how they were treated after serving their country. And here, they do pick up that thread a little bit. They don't let it breathe quite as much as they did in the Disney Plus series, but you still very much have that theme coming across in this film.
Yeah, because otherwise there's so much mystery around Isaiah, and that does start to play out as the film goes on. Let's talk about getting to the summit here and the bridging of the gap that Sam sees, because Isaiah doesn't trust Ross for a multitude of reasons.
And he's sort of ribbing Sam for even playing nice with him, especially after, you know, and it is a really good throwaway line that he was thrown with Steve and Natasha into the raft.
Right.
Under Ross's command.
Right. But in a very Captain America sort of style, Sam sees the good in the hope that is symbolized by bridging the gap. So he sees the value in it. And you see Ross kind of give it back to him when he says, we're going to reboot the Avengers and I want you to be the head of it all. So I think it's more seamless transition because, as we know, Captain America, the first film with Chris Evans, is the first Avenger because he was, in fact, the first Avenger. So the fact that we're going to reboot it, we're going to make you number one again, it's a very full circle moment that I think works in service of giving Sam the confidence that he should be the man behind the shield. It confirms that he's made the right decision in doing the righteous thing by working with Ross, seeing it as a way to bridge the gap and to show that there is hope for society. Like, the whole thing just works because the whole time, as you just pointed out, Sam didn't take the super soldier serum. He's not a superhero, you know, in the chemical definition of what Captain America is. So this gives him the confidence boost in knowing that his morality is what has made him the perfect Captain America, which is why Steve picked him to begin with.
Exactly. But it's not just that he has the Captain America moniker. It is so rightfully his because who's left standing at the end of Civil War with Steve and Natasha, where they're at Avengers Campus training the new recruits? It's Sam. And Steve and Natasha are gone, as is Tony. So, like, just given the fact that he has seniority, it's always been Sam.
Right.
And to your point, I like that they were able to give him that internal struggle again without it being a rehash of Can I inherit the shield? Am I worthy? This is now, he keeps having it thrown in his face. Well, you have the shield, but you're not Steve.
Yeah, I think that line, I understand why they put it in. Honestly, I think they wrote that line for the trailer, if I'm being honest with you. Because there are, like, it seems, I don't know, to me it seems a little unmotivated.
See, I don't think so. I think it's used to reinforce some of the outlook on having Sam in this role, because after the assassination attempt, that's when Ross rescinds the offer.
Yeah.
And he's the first one to say, you're no Steve Rogers, but he doubles down on it with son.
Yeah.
And I think that the racial implications from that, they're being very deliberate. So I think you needed to tie that to the "you're not Steve," lest we completely write Ross off as a racist.
Yeah, it's done deliberately, but I wish that Sam would not have come out of that meeting going, "Son, what's that to imply?" It's like, there are a few moments, and I have notes on a few specific moments, that being one of them, where the screenwriting is not very good. He could have just called him son, and Sam, the look on Sam's face said what needed to be said without him having to actually say it.
No, and as the audience, like, message received.
Correct. There are times where they don't let things remain subtle. And honestly, if there's one point in the movie where I'm waiting for Harrison Ford to say, "Get off my plane," this is where I wait for him to say it. But let's talk about let's rewind for just a moment here and talk about the actual assault at the summit.
Yes, because there are so many added layers to this too, especially with the introduction of Ruth's character.
Yes.
She's his
head of security.
And then we learn that she's also an ex-Black widow, that she was trained with the widows. And I feel like there are so many parallels to the introduction of Natasha. When you think back to Iron Man 2, how she's hired by Pepper, but she's really working for S.H.I.E.L.D. the entire time. So to see an ex-widow in this role, you have to immediately question, was she appointed by S.H.I.E.L.D. or was this Ross's idea? How did she get here? And can we 1,000% trust her?
Right. And when Ross is open fire upon, at first we just see that it's Isaiah and that Isaiah is stopped. And then it's the other service members start trying to open fire on the other world leaders. It's a great scene. When they apprehend Isaiah and he does not want to go back to prison because he doesn't want to be experimented on anymore. He knows what's waiting for him there. But the moment where Sam convinces him to just give himself up, because Sam believes he's going to be able to figure this out on his own, he can talk Ross into letting him investigate. The very human element of Isaiah, where he's done this horrible thing, he has no recollection of it. He just tried to assassinate the President of the United States. He knows what's waiting for him in that prison. And the entire time it's, "Please don't ruin my suit." Because it's earlier he explains that that was the suit he wore when he got married. It really humanizes a character who just tried to do a very horrific thing.
The scene is so well acted too, that he has no idea what he did, but the fear of having to go back to prison where he was tortured, the fear in his eyes. This scene is, and the stare down with Sam, where Sam is trying to get control back, but he knows how bad this is. And he's just like, "This is going to be worse if you fight it. Just go with it. I'll help you." Just so well done. This is an incredibly powerful scene. The other thing that we kind of skipped over too, I love the introduction of the adamantium and how this presents a conflict with Japan and how that's a thread throughout the rest of this.
Yeah.
I think it's very smart to go with Japan. Russia has taken a lot of licks in the MCU up until this point. So I think this was pretty smart that we're trying to enter a treaty with Japan, but there's going to be conflict. And I think this was a really nice recovery of how to use this Celestial after Eternals bombed.
Yes.
Because do I think that this was where they were going with the Celestial the entire time? Absolutely not. But this works.
I think it also makes sense that they refuse to let Sam investigate this.
Yeah.
I think that for Ruth and Ross to say, how is the optic going to look? Where Captain America is trying to clear the name of his friend who also tried to assassinate the president. And at the same time, they now, I don't think, believe in Sam. And then that's sort of where that whole son and everything else comes in. They now don't believe in him. So, and they're questioning whether Steve Rogers made the right decision. And they're going to start knocking him down, rescind the offer to rebuild the Avengers. Frankly, it makes sense from a story perspective. And quite honestly, it's very realistic because I don't think you would want, realistically for all of these reasons, Captain America to be investigating this independently.
Very true, but I think there's also a third reason behind it, and I'm only realizing this now as you were saying it. This is also another parallel between Sam and Steve because Steve had to plead this case with Bucky, essentially.
Yeah, very true.
You mentioned before, get off my plane. The president is en route to Japan to go hopefully have this treaty signed after the debacle of the summit. Can I just say, I love seeing Peloton in the MCU. And on Air Force One of all places, I just love this. Another thing that really makes this feel grounded in reality. And I remember when this film was released, Peloton had a huge week-long cross-promotion with it, where they had all of these rides and strength training classes that were specifically programmed in conjunction with the release of the film. It was really fun.
And didn't Anthony Mackie show up for some of those rides?
I think he did, yeah. I think he did one with Alex Toussaint, who is who you see on the screen in the film.
There is something, though, that I want to talk about. You have this very powerful scene, right, where Sam visits Isaiah in prison. And Isaiah tells him, don't come back, leave me alone. I'm paraphrasing this. You're going to ruin your life. Forget me. There's no way for me to get out of here. This is on the heels of Sam being told, stay out of it. Did he truly believe that he could go to this military government-run jail, show up, have a conversation with Isaiah without the government listening in on it?
Well, this is exactly what I'm talking about with Ruth, right? Because you have the guard that lets him in say, I could be court-martialed for this. So keep it brief and don't try anything fancy. But Ruth, then you have this quick beat where Ruth says, hey, thanks for doing that for me. You know, like she orchestrated the whole thing because she knew he was going to go and see Isaiah. Much like you can smell a rat with how easy it is for them to break into Camp Echo.
Yeah.
So, you know, while Sam is trying to smooth things over with Isaiah, he's got Joaquin hot on the trail because Joaquin is not only in training to be Falcon. We know that he can fight. He's also a very solid man in the chair. He's great with tech. So he's broken into the government system. He's the one who finds out that Ruth is ex-widow, and that's when they start to question her. And he digs up all of the history on Camp Echo. So they decide that they're going to do a break-in. Again, this is where it really works because this base is in the middle of Virginia. And they bake that right into the story because they're like, well, it's not coming up on radars. It's a no-fly zone. So what's really going on over there? And it's a quick, car ride over for them. But they send out Red Wing ahead to cut a hole in the fence and trip the cameras on a loop, and they're in within about 30 seconds. If this is a military base, you should have way more stringent security there. So you know that something nefarious is going on, and you know that more than likely Ross is very aware of what's happening here. We just don't know how much, because this is where the meat and potatoes of it is really getting revealed, that this is where they've had Stern since the events in Harlem, when I hesitate to say tried to help Banner, because was he ever really helping Banner? It was all about personal gain for him. But Ross has kept him here the entire time for his own personal gain. And Ross promised him that when he was elected president, he would be free. And here Ross sits. It's a very quick line in the beginning of the movie where he says, my first 100 days are almost done, so my legacy is going to be solidified here. And he's made no effort to make good on his word to Stern.
Yeah, I like that Stearns is back. I think that it was a smart way to pick up on what seemed to be a previously dead plot line.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know in the MCU, for the most part, nothing remains dead. They will find ways to tie things up neatly. I like that this is where he's been. That's how they cover up the fact that we never made a sequel to Incredible Hulk. So we just put him in this bunker, and this is where he's been for 15 years.
It
and
works,
it makes sense.
though.
It does. It totally makes sense. I also think that Camp Echo 1 is a phenomenal set. It's very basic, but you know that these things exist out in the real world. All of this, I think, just makes a ton of sense. I love this is where he's been. I love that Ross has kept him here. I love that we still can't trust Ross in doing the right thing, but I think in the back of our minds, we all know. I mean, just look at Stearns. Ross was never going to let him out.
That makeup, absolutely incredible, by the way. I love that it's practical. We didn't have to go for CGI. It looks absolutely fantastic. And especially the way that it's lit and revealed. It's just so awesome. But to your point, this is where it's not even that Ross is conflicted at this point. I mean, I think he is in terms of his relationship with his daughter, and he's really trying to do whatever needs to be done so that he comes out on top of this and he can repair the relationship with her. But he's really not doing himself any favors, because he's obviously behind everything. I mean, Stearns is behind everything with regard to the assassination attempt, which was also quite a risky move when you think about it, because if Ross is the only one who can clear you and get you out of here, you almost killed him. But they cover their tracks very nicely with that, because they say Isaiah had him in the crosshairs. He had a clear shot and he missed. So this is where you really get the idea that Stearns is pulling the strings, and that was all intentional. He was never really going to kill him, but he's using the mind control because he knows that Ross is never going to keep his word. And it keeps Ross in check because he literally can't tell the truth now. He knows that he's losing Japan. He knows that Japan is very much on the fence about signing this treaty, because now with this assassination attempt, they think that the U.S. is unstable. But Ross isn't going to incriminate himself to save the U.S. at this point. It's all playing right into Stern's hand.
Yeah, the fact that it also leads us to believe that he can use this technology that he has developed to take control of any person at any time. It sort of leaves you guessing, and it leaves the film and the audience on its heels for the rest of the runtime.
Well, especially now because Ruth tracks them down and really helps them escape Camp Echo 1. So they get to safety at another base where the Serpent is being kept. And Sam S. Dunphy, who I really like, by the way, they introduce him in the very beginning when they first capture the Serpent. It just kind of shows that they have a relationship too. Sam and Dunphy, and he's a trusted friend and advisor. So he asks him to examine the pills that they found at Camp Echo. And these are the pills where Stearns has been secretly upping the dose of gamma in each one. And unbeknownst to him, Ross has just been taking all of this extra dose, and he doesn't know what is now brewing inside of him. He just knows that these pills are saving his life, and he wants to live long enough to repair the relationship with his daughter. So that all, to me, it's diabolical and kind of simple that it all goes back to the pills, but it all really works. I think this is a really great plot point.
Yeah, and it works for Stearns, too, because he has ultimate control. It's, hey, I've done this to you. And he hasn't said as much yet, but I've done this to you. I can expose you for what you really are. I can ruin your reputation, or you can play nice with me.
Exactly.
Because I infected you with it, but we also know that I'm capable of removing it. Because he's done it once with Banner.
Exactly. I mean, he truly has him over a barrel. So Sam has Dunphy examine the pill, or a guy, one of Dunphy's guys, examine the pills. And in this scene, he also tries to get the information of what's really going down out of Serpent. I love this negotiation scene. Serpent is willing to give it up, but he's trying to negotiate his sentence. And I feel like we kind of have our sequel set up here, or if not a sequel to this film, I think we are thinking future Avengers. Like there's something bigger picture happening, because Sam tells him he can get him a reduced sentence, but if he tries to break out of the prison, Sam's gonna kill him. And the Serpent basically says, when I break out. So I think we're setting up a future villain here.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't do all of this to bring Sidewinder in just to have him remain in prison as a one-off.
The other thing, and we're going to get to cast later, obviously, you didn't waste Giancarlo Esposito as a villain in 5 minutes of screen time here.
Correct.
Ain't no way. And you'd be foolish if you did, because he's so good.
Now, while all of this is happening, Japan has mobilized their troops to go take the adamantium. Ross responds with sending U.S. troops to go intervene, and now it's, well, if we're not going to split it evenly and it's going to end up in the hands of one nation, it's going to end up in the hands of our nation. It's either we have it and nobody has it, or we have it and everybody else has it. But if you're not going to play nice, we're not going to play nice.
Yeah, I love how everything converges on Celestial Island. And, you know, before our big battle, you do have the shakedown between Sam and Ross, where he's like, all right, the jig is up. I've met Stearns. What's really going on? And Ross still won't give it up. The most he says is that Stearns is collateral damage. And this is what I mentioned before, where I feel like this is truly where Ross's colors are showing. The only side that Ross is going to ever be on is Ross's. Not for the good of the country, not for the good of the planet. This is still, I think, the defining line of he's in this for personal gain. So now you have the two rogue pilots who are being mind controlled by Stearns that start firing on the Japanese fleet. And Ross is trying to, or Sam tells Ross, call them back. We have to show Japan that we're de-escalating this. And he's like, I can't get a bird in the air just yet. And Sam's like, well, you got two ready to go.
It's so,
I don't care. No, I don't care.
So bad.
I don't care. I love it. I love it. So you have this incredible scene where Sam and Joaquin are literally taking down missiles. I like this scene. I think it's a good action sequence. I like that they give Sam a little flex where he's literally surfing on a missile. But it does take a very serious turn, because Joaquin, who's this character you've really started to fall in love with, you think that he's kind of taken out because he's in a bad way there. But it's also a really great character moment for him because this entire time he's been trying to follow in Sam's footsteps and he's so eager to prove himself. He gets a little cocky and he doesn't listen, and it almost costs him his life. But we do get this really great scene as a result because Sam is really worried. He's watching the surgery, which... What hospital allows a window where you can view your loved one on the operating table? That's something like it happened when Fury was in the hospital, or that was a decoy when Fury was in the hospital. But they have an observation window. This isn't a medical training facility where you need to watch and learn the surgery. You should not be seeing your loved one hacked open. But where I'm going with all of this.
It's not his grandmother. It's, you're acting like he just showed up at a regular hospital.
I know, but...
He didn't go to, St. Cloud Regional to go watch his aunt get operated on.
But watching them restart Joaquin's heart is probably so much worse than just being out in a waiting room. But the point that I'm making in all of this is that we get this great beat with Bucky.
Yes. So Bucky arrives to console Sam and to remind him that Steve picked him for a reason. It's also there to set up the fact that Bucky is now running for office, which is a storyline that we pick up in Thunderbolts. It's a very quick scene that he's in there. If I'm being honest, I think it's less about having to really contribute to this film. I think it's more to contribute to the next. But people would sit there and say, well, how do you have Falcon and Winter Soldier, but you don't have them together here?
Yeah. What do you think of the turn that Bucky's taking, though, as far as a political career?
I think it makes sense. I think he doesn't want to be a soldier anymore. As they point out, he's 110 years old. Right? He's fought in World War II. He's been injured. He's been taken to Wakanda. He's been through the blip. He's been through Endgame. He's watched Steve Rogers die. I don't think he wants to be a soldier anymore, and they sort of pick up on that in Thunderbolts. So I think it makes sense that this is the route that he's going to take.
I would agree. I feel like Congressman Barnes has taken a lot of flack from the fans because they want to see him be Winter Soldier, but again, this is where Falcon and Winter Soldier does a lot of the unpacking, is because, he says in the first episode of the series, I've been fighting for 90 years. I've gone from one fight to another. I don't know who I am without that. And he spends a lot of Falcon and Winter Soldier figuring that out. So I feel like without the Avengers, this is kind of a natural step for him. And they do call it out a little bit because he talks about, his word of advice for Sam when Sam is struggling with, should I have taken the serum? And, kind of understandably so, because he's looking at his friend on the operating table. He's starting to probably think about his own mortality and how this could all be taken away from him if he missteps. And Bucky tells him, it's not just because Steve believed in you that he passed over the shield to you. It's that Steve gave the people something to believe in, but because he's a super soldier, he was this icon that they looked up to. And he tells Sam, you give them something to aspire to because you are an average guy who, yes, served our country, but you've done these extraordinary things because you were brave enough to do that without a serum. And then Sam kind of ribs him and he's like, oh, did your speechwriters give you that one? So I like that this is Marvel at its best when it's very self-aware.
Moving on to what ends up being the last critical scene in the movie. We now have a press conference where they are announcing that the Japanese are agreeing to the treaty for the adamantium, right? And you have the president now being grilled by the press, and he's starting to get worked up. He's starting to lose his temper. As this is happening, it's now sort of being exposed to Sam, who's not at the White House, exactly what is going on with the gamma pills, right? Because Stearns is talking to him. There is, though, something that gets a little confusing to me here. We know that Stearns has been using mind control the entire time.
With that song that triggers everybody.
Right. You start to hear, as Ross is getting worked up, you hear Stearns come over the loudspeaker at the press conference, but he's already been apprehended. So how is he on the loudspeaker, but he's also in custody? Like, if he had escaped, or if he had pre-recorded this and had somebody push a play button, like, we need to see that he's still using the mind control.
That was kind of what I always chalked it up to, was that it was pre-recorded and it was all part of the plan.
Right, but we don't see it, so that's a lot to be left to the imagination.
If that's like the one flaw of this movie, I will take it, but it's not.
It's not.
No, what I do like, though, is that up to this point, the only person who knew that Ross was quietly being fed or having the dose upped of the gamma was Dunphy, because he got the call from his guy that had figured out what these pills are. He never got to tell Sam. He was trying to, and Stearns killed him.
Right.
So Stearns reveals this to Sam, but he thinks he's going to be taking Sam out, and that there's no way that Ross is ever going to find out why he is hulking out. Yeah, from here to the end, it is just CGI on CGI on CGI. And except for the Hulk, which has been done and it's tried and true as far as Mark Ruffalo transforming, and a whole series of She-Hulk. So that all looks great. Thank goodness that you didn't fumble the bag on that one. But the rest of it is so god-awful. It is some of the worst CGI I've ever seen, not just in Marvel, but across the board. And I understand that we're not actually going to be filming this at the White House because it gets destroyed. So you're going to have to CGI some of that. Or here's a novel idea, rebuild the thing with some scaffolding and a facade and destroy that. But no, it's CGI. It might even be AI. That is how bad it looks, because this film would have been in post-production before all of the agreements that took place because of the writers and actors strike.
Right.
So this might have been one of those movies where everything slipped through the cracks. To me, what's even worse, though, than the White House CGI is these cherry blossoms, where you know this is going to be like Red Hulk's deactivator, because he talked about walking through the cherry blossoms with Betty, and it was going to be the equivalent of, come on, big guy, the sun's getting real low. So that was no surprise. But clearly they're not filming in Washington, D.C. This is not even, it doesn't look like anything that's near there. It's not even on the other side of the Peconic, like in Georgetown.
Yeah.
It's just, it looks so bad. And the reason that I think it's AI as opposed to just CGI is because it's so stagnant. Nothing is moving. Like, there's water in the background. It's completely still. Then there are some background extras, but they're not really moving that much. So I'm kind of thinking this is all AI, and it stands out like a sore thumb and ruins what's otherwise been a really solid flick to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think Red Hulk looks really good, but to your point, the backgrounds look terrible. And it's, like, not well lit either. Like, there are moments where you have, where Sam is talking to Ross, and you're breaking the fourth wall, because Sam is looking into the camera because we're supposed to have the POV of Ross. I don't know why, but that was a choice. And it, like, the lighting is horrible. It's so obvious that he is standing in front of a green screen and everything's just not keyed properly.
But also there's not a consistent light source.
Correct.
The sun is in the east, it's in the west, it's all over the place.
Yeah, and the cherry blossoms, it's Martha. Yeah, right? Like how everybody sits there and gets so, like amped up over that, but nobody gets that upset about these cherry blossoms. And the other thing that I didn't bring it up before, I was kind of saving it for now. There is some for a script that otherwise is very well written, for a fun political thriller that keeps you guessing.
Yeah.
Why in God's name are we stooping to 80s action film dialogue? You have Sam say to Ross as the Red Hulk, "You want me? Come and get me." Then, in the beginning of the film, we're in Oaxaca, and one of the henchmen goes, "I bet you break easy." And Sam goes, "Not that easy." Like, some of this dialogue is so cheesy.
It's like reading the comic, which when you're reading it in a comic, it's not like, you know what you're getting and it reads differently. Hearing that, it just sounds terrible. It sounds clunky. This might be a result of having too many cooks in the kitchen, like I was saying before, with so many people having worked on the story and screenplay. But I also, like, that's the thing, I also expect better from Anthony Mackie, because I know that in Falcon and Winter Soldier, they let him and Sebastian Stan go a lot and improv a lot, because those two get along so well. And it's palpable. Their chemistry is absolutely palpable. So I can understand if maybe he's used to ad-libbing quite a bit. And he is very, very funny. Like, anytime he was doing press to promote this movie, he's hilarious, having so much fun with it. Like, he loves this character so much. I've never seen that cheesiness from him.
Right.
Even if he is improving, you know, the most gimmicky catchphrase he's ever had is "on your left," but like,
that was ironically
and it's also become an iconic line.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do that kind of thing, I expect so much more from you, you know?
I just couldn't believe that lines like that made it into the film. And I don't want to speculate that they used AI to help write the script, but
ooh,
it just, I don't see how in 2024, when the movie came out, right? Oh wait, no, the movie came out this year.
It was this
2025.
year. Yeah.
So it's in post in 2024. How in 2025 are we still getting lines like "You want me, come get me"?
No, and that's what I'm saying. Anthony Mackie respects this character and the material so much, and he loves it so much. I can't imagine he's sitting there going, you know, I'm acting opposite Harrison Ford. Let's go with this line.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Even if he wasn't ad-libbing, I can't imagine that he wouldn't have raised the flag, because it didn't sound so great. And then it feels even more clunky, because it feels like this movie could have ended at 3 different points, because obviously he's going to go break out Isaiah. That's his first order of business. And I love that Ruth made sure he got his wedding suit back, and it was in pristine condition. She had it dry cleaned. So that was great. Then Sam goes to visit Joaquin in the hospital and basically tells him, like, okay, you're ready to be the Falcon. And then he goes to visit Ross, who is now in the raft because it's the only thing that can hold him. And you do get the reunion. Liv Tyler reprises her role as Betty, and they make amends, so to speak. But it feels like it just keeps going. And any one of those scenes they could have, you know, done as the out. I'm honestly surprised that some of these weren't like mid-credit scenes, especially the Liv Tyler one. But what do you think about Ross's arc? And this is where he's essentially going to land, is the I mean, I don't think we're done with him necessarily, but because he's got this gamma in him that he didn't ask for, like, this is not just going to go away. he's got to learn to live with it the way that Banner did. So why not let him do that, you know?
Well, I think that it makes sense that this is what you would do because technically speaking, we never need to see him again. I think that if William Hurt hadn't passed away, I think that they would have done more with this character. Harrison Ford's in his 80s. How many more Marvel movies? How many more movies in general does he want to do, much less Marvel? I feel like this is just where we're at a point you can just cast him off. I don't know that you want to recast this character again. I mean, you certainly could, but I feel like you just live in a world where he's on the raft. We may not ever see or hear from the raft again. And if you really needed it, it's still there, should you have to recast the actor again.
No, I agree. I don't think that they signed Harrison Ford to a multi-picture deal. And they do cover their tracks enough because it was Ross's decision to go in. Because unlike Banner, he hasn't figured out how to manage it. So, like, I'll buy that notion, but it's just interesting that after being such a huge part of this universe, even though the character has dipped in and out of so many films, you really did give him a big arc, and this is where it's landing.
I just don't think you need him anymore. That's the fact, and that would have been true if William Hurt was still with us or not. I just don't think you need any more of Ross. I think Ross has run his course at this point in time.
I would agree.
Well, like you said, he pops in and out of many films, and there, obviously, with it being the MCU, could be a lot of things that you would be looking out for, perhaps some Easter eggs that were buried. Where in the Film is brought to you by our friends at Where in the Park, a seek and find card game that you can play in your favorite parks. Whether it's Disney or Universal, SeaWorld, and more, Where in the Park challenges you to spot those little details that so many can miss. To order your game packs, visit monoreelradio.com and click our affiliate link for a 10% discount today.
My Where in the Film actually does pertain to Ross because, as we know, William Hurt had a mustache when he plays the character. So there is a quick little throwaway line where Sam says, "I'm still getting used to the new look," referencing that Ross had shaved the mustache off. And Ross says it was supposed to make him more approachable, so we did it for the career. But there is sort of, I think, a double meaning in that line, too, for Sam, that he, too, is getting used to his new look. So I really, really like that line. It was a good little Easter egg to address the change in the actor. But I love that they layered it with deeper meaning.
When you see Isaiah for the first time, he's in his gym, his boxing training facility, and he throws a punch on a punching bag and he knocks it off its chains, which was the exact same thing that happened when Steve Rogers gets approached as Captain America to start the Avengers. So that was certainly a tip of the cap to the original Cap by the other original Cap, because we don't really know how old Isaiah is, but it's a cap to a cap to a cap to an old part of the MCU. All right, let's start talking about our cast. We're going to focus on new cast, because a few of these actors we've already spoken about in previous reviews. Let's talk about Danny Ramirez, who plays Joaquin, who did not die, even though they talked, basically the whole film was like, hey, I'm going to die in this movie. And then they didn't do it, which I appreciate. Danny Ramirez is great. I think Joaquin is great, and I'm excited to see how they can expand on this character and keep the Falcon going.
I agree. I like that that's where all of this is going, that the baton is being passed for him to become the Falcon, but it's not immediate. It's, we need to get you there first. It's not enough to just want to do it. We have to make sure you're ready and that you're not going to make mistakes like this where you almost get yourself killed. But I agree with you. I thought for sure they were going to take him out because he is such a likable character. They set that up, and they set up this relationship in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So like they do have that sort of buddy bromance going. And I really thought that this was going to become a bigger part of Sam as Captain America's arc, as far as having to experience a loss, much like so many of the other Avengers have. And that's why they are Avengers. They're avenging the people who meant something to them. So I really thought every time they made the joke of, hey, don't get yourself killed. Don't die. Copy that. I was like, oh, this kid's out. This kid is toast. So I like that they played with it and that they actually did let him live to see another day.
Let's talk about Harrison Ford, who takes over the role as Thaddeus Ross. I thought that he did a good job with it. As I stated earlier, I was waiting for a get off my plane, which we never got, which is fine. I thought that he played Ross a little bit differently than William Hurt, but in a way that it made sense. It didn't feel like two completely different characters. It had the feel of a character that had taken the next step in his political journey, and I thought that he was highly motivated, and I thought that Harrison Ford did a good job.
I think I of course love Harrison Ford and respect him as an actor, but I do feel like he kind of made it too much of his own, and I don't feel like there was enough of a thread between the two actors, especially when they do the flashback scene, where it's supposed to be, you see him with the mustache as William Hurt played the character. I feel like he could have maybe studied the mannerisms a little bit more. And I feel like he was better in the political jargon scenes, as opposed to he was when he was hulking out. It was hard to watch almost, where they have that scene on the aircraft carrier where he almost transforms, where Stearns is really pushing him, but he doesn't get quite there. It just looks like he's in pain. And I don't want this to sound ageist, but given that he is in his 80s, it's sort of uncomfortable to watch someone that age go through it. It doesn't seem comic booky. It seems like it looks like he's having a heart attack. And for me, that was uncomfortable to watch. But otherwise, I thought he did a good job.
Carl Lumbly plays Isaiah Bradley. He was so good. He gave this character so much depth and so much weight. He acted so heavily with his eyes. He was a scene stealer in every way possible.
He's incredible. He's such an incredible talent. We just saw him in Life of Chuck, which is just an unbelievable film. I definitely liked his presence in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and how he was sort of a mentor and, like I said, a paternal figure to Sam. But I love how he got to expand and really come into his own and really flesh out this character in this film and give him such a depth. And really, he's what grounds the film, I feel.
I would agree. Shira Haas plays Ruth, the former Black Widow that is the head security advisor for President Ross. I'm excited to see where they can expand on her. Mm-hmm. I think that you need another Widow to play the Natasha role without trying to be Natasha. Mm-hmm. Because you don't really have that anymore. I think you can do a lot with her. I think she's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not sure that we're going to see her for a while. She seems like the type that's going to pop up all of a sudden in oh my God, I forgot about this. And she's going to come in at the most opportunistic time.
I would agree. She's probably going to be like an Agent Coulson or some sort of a S.H.I.E.L.D. presence moving forward. But to your point, we need a character like that because we're not going to get the Natasha presence in a femme fatale kind of way, the way that Scarlett Johansson portrayed her. You're not going to get that in Yelena because Yelena has completely turned her back on the widows and she's exploring life as she's finding her independence. But here you do kind of get the impression that because, we see Ruth fight, and we do see her sort of play both sides, I feel like she is going to be acting in her own self-interest in that way. And as far as the actress goes, I mean, she is the epitome of, though she be but little, she is fierce. She just looks like a tiny human, but oh my God, her presence is formidable. She is not one to be messed with, and I'm excited to see them lean into that.
Giancarlo Esposito plays Sidewinder. Great in the scenes that he's in, but not in enough scenes. And I feel like unless they've done this with the purpose of expanding on this character and having him have a larger role in further films in the MCU, which I think is probably what they've done, he just seems lost in this. And it's not because he didn't do a good job. It's because he just wasn't in enough of the film.
I don't think that he was lost, but I agree with you. If this is not a villain origin story, it was a total waste of casting Giancarlo Esposito, because he is such an unbelievable talent. But that was my thought the whole time, is that there's got to be more. There's got to be more that they're doing. And I'm pretty sure that they set it up in the scene where he's negotiating his punishment. I think he's going to break out. And I actually think that I would hope that the way that they were going for Kang as the big bad, I know we've set up Dr. Doom already, but I would hope that he's going to be one of the big bad villains. And maybe this is the pivot from Kang.
Yeah, Tim Blake Nelson plays Samuel Stearns. Brought him back from The Incredible Hulk. He was amazing in this film. Brooding. He's not overpowering. He's not a big guy. He's not a Thanos, right? He's not Ajax. He's just so diabolical and so cunning. And as you pointed out earlier, the makeup's unbelievable. I was really happy to see that they gave him the opportunity to come back, and I think that he knocked this out of the park.
I agree, especially because the whole crux of this character is that he thinks that he's smarter than everyone else, so he's got that cockiness, but in fact he is.
Yeah.
You know, he's a genius. He maybe didn't have the same notoriety as Bruce Banner, but he understood Banner beat for beat. And I think that the actor just locked into that so well by giving him that cockiness. He's just an incredible villain.
Liv Tyler plays Betty Ross. Hi, Dad. It's basically the same line that she's delivered in so many movies.
It really is.
And that's no shot at Liv Tyler. She's actually very talented. But I mean, she's in it for 2 minutes, maybe. It's great that they gave her the opportunity to come back. I don't think we're ever going to see her again in the MCU. I don't think this is like Jennifer Garner, where we actually might see Elektra again.
I like that we got her back, and they at least, were able to give her moment, because I think this was more about you never got your sequel than anything else, because she was such a huge presence in The Incredible Hulk. That was just as much her movie as it was Edward Norton's, because she was with him the entire time, and she's put in the middle of him and her dad. Which, upon rewatching The Incredible Hulk, it really makes that Bruce and Natasha fling, whatever you want to call it, it really makes it feel even more unmotivated and unnecessary than it already was, just because there's no chemistry there and it's just uncalled for. But I think this could really go either way, because to your point, if they're going to wrap up Ross's character and just leave him on the raft, there's really nowhere for this father-daughter relationship to go. So in that regard, it would feel like they're tying up loose ends and just giving her moment. Or now that Natasha is out of the picture, if Mark Ruffalo is going to do more as the Hulk, maybe you pick up the thread that way. And like, I would probably, I could buy the two of them together as far as having chemistry. I'd probably buy her more with Mark Ruffalo than I did her with Ed Norton.
Final thoughts on Captain America: Brave New World.
I really, really enjoyed this movie. Aside from the awful CGI, it is a great movie. They really knocked it out of the park story-wise because it's an awesome standalone. It's a great pickup as far as where they left all these loose ends in The Incredible Hulk, and a great expansion upon the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. So in that regard, it really does fire on all cylinders. And when you also factor in that this is the pivot out of the multiverse, this is such a great place to pick up where they left off before we got lost in there. So if you do have Marvel fatigue, or, you know, if you're one of the people that has never seen it and is intimidated by, I don't want to jump in at this point because you have to watch the whole backstory, this is a great re-entry point if you're looking to get into Marvel.
Do you want to see more Captain America sort of in this vein where maybe we're not in the multiverse, certainly we're not time traveling anymore, and just being more present day?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're definitely going to get Sam more in the Avengers, but I wouldn't mind if they gave him a full trilogy to round it out, just because I love Anthony Mackie in this role. And I think that the world that they've populated around him, with really rich characters like Isaiah, I feel like that could work. I don't know that they're going to do that, though, because he already got the series on Disney Plus. So it really depends on probably how much he's signed up for and where they're going to put him as far as the Avengers bigger picture.
Yeah, I certainly hope that we see more of him, and more of him in a solo role and not just popping up in Avengers. He's gone on record to say that he wants to play this character for another 10 years. And I think that there are a lot of ways that you can sort of expand on this storyline. Yeah, this movie's excellent. From the perspective of it being a political thriller, it's excellent. From the perspective of it being a re-entry point for the MCU and getting away from the muckiness that was the multiverse, I think that it accomplishes that. The CGI is horrible, but, you know, Disney. So, unfortunately, we've been conditioned to accept Disney's horrific, horrible, never good CGI. And it's never going to get better. With that said, there are some story flaws, there are some questions, and as I pointed out, there's for as good as the dialogue is, there's just moments where it just seems very, very, very juvenile. But anyway, with all of that said, I loved it, and I absolutely want more. We are interested in knowing what you have to say. We are always looking for your feedback. You can let us know on all forms of social media at Monoreel Radio, or you can send us an email, monoreelradio@gmail.com. News of the Week is coming up, but first, a quick break.
News of the Week is proudly sponsored by KMV Travel. KMV Travel is a boutique travel agency that helps families plan personalized vacations and create unforgettable memories in the most magical place on earth. Planning for a Disney vacation can be stressful, but it doesn't need to be when you're working with a KMV travel specialist who will work with you to customize the perfect vacation for you and your family. Your KMV travel advisor will help you determine what parks to visit on each day, ensure you know the ins and outs of essential tools like My Disney Experience and Genie Plus apps, assist with dining reservations, and of course, share their favorite hacks so you get the most out of your vacation. Visit kmvtravel.com to start making magic now.
When we were planning our first family trip to Disney World, Jackie was the first person that we thought of.
Jackie helped us with every step of the planning, and she helped us pick the right hotel for our itinerary and our budget.
She also gave us great recommendations when it came to scheduling our parks, our dining reservations, and the attractions.
These days, it feels like there's a lot that goes into planning a Disney trip, and there's a lot that we just didn't know about Disney World, and we're just so thankful for Jackie's advice in making it all a little bit easier.
Yeah, when we got to the property, we realized we wanted to add on another park day, so we texted Jackie early in the morning, and she got back to us right away, and that really helped us make it happen.
We had some amazing meals and drinks. We went to Cinderella's Royal Table, we went to Oga's Cantina, we rode Rise of the Resistance without waiting on a long line, And on Jackie's recommendation, we saw the Epcot fireworks from the Skyliner.
This was an unforgettable family trip to Disney World, and Jackie made it happen.
Thank you, Jackie.
Lilo and Stitch 2. The live action Lilo and Stitch 2 will be going into production soon, and of course it is.
I can't say I'm surprised by this because I'm not, especially given the popularity of Lilo and Stitch. I mean, they did so much more with the animation. Like there's that, we've never watched it, but there's that pink Stitch character that you see all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I know this has already been expanded upon in animation, but if there was a surprise element in any of this, it was that this is the one that you're going to choose to do a sequel to when there have been so many other well-received live action remakes that this is where you're choosing to start. And I say start because they will keep doing this now because they're out of ideas. If they can't, you know, they're running short on live action remakes. So now we're going to have to start building upon those IPs. And, you know, this is probably the first of many that we're going to see. But it's a bold move. I mean, this did well at the box office because people love Lilo and Stitch. But if you listen to the fan reactions, they don't love the changes to it. So now you're going to double down and give people more of what they didn't want. I see what they're doing. I see right through what they're doing, but I just don't think that this is the best film to start doing it with.
Let's talk about something a little bit more lighthearted. The NHL draft was last weekend, and the Anaheim Ducks, who are no longer owned by Disney, have gone back to a modern throwback logo, so it would only make sense that they would get Marguerite Moreau and Joshua Jackson to announce their first-round pick at the draft in Los Angeles, but a short helicopter ride away from Anaheim and Disneyland. And they selected Roger McQueen, who actually I think is a very good player. He's somebody that had he slipped to 16, I had on the short list of players I hoped the Islanders would take. And he did the thing. They flew him in the helicopter to Disneyland. They had him take a picture with Lightning McQueen. And then when it came to select a jersey number, he selected number 95. And I think that this thing is going to sell like crazy when he eventually gets to the NHL full time.
1,000%. But I'm excited that it seems that they're embracing the cross promotion again. Even though the team is no longer owned by Disney, they still have a very good business relationship. So I think we're going to see a lot more crossover, especially with this now. I'm glad the kid didn't fumble the bag. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad he embraced it. I'm glad he did what the fans want. And I think that they're going to have a lot of fun with it.
Let's talk about one of the most exciting times of the year. And that would be the Eat to the Beat concert schedule at Epcot for the International Food and Wine Festival. This schedule was announced about 2 hours ago. Some returning favorites, some that are new, and some that are absolutely astonishing.
Yeah, this is a really stacked list. I'm happy to see my man, Joey Fatone, leading it off.
Yeah. I'm not giving the dates for all of these. You can go to Disney Parks blog and look at this.
We'll also put them on our social media, and we'll link it.
But something of note here, a lot of returning favorite. Two that are very new that are actually wrapping up the schedule. The first is Bowling for Soup. We saw them at Universal, not for free. It wasn't a part of a Universal concert schedule. We actually paid to see them.
We saw them at Hard Rock,
Hard Rock.
because they were with Lit.
Yeah, they put on a great show. They're going to be a lot of fun. And it makes sense because they did write the theme song for Phineas and Ferb, so I'm sort of surprised that they hadn't been tapped earlier to do this.
True.
And shocker of shockers, closing out the International Food and Wine Festival and closing out the Eat to the Beat concert series, November 16th and 17th, the Beach Boys. And immediately, Brendan and Catherine texted us and said, do you think Stamos will show up? And my answer is absolutely.
1,000%. And he can roll right over into narrating the candlelight processional. They could just put him up at the Grand Flow, and I'm sure he'd be happy to stay.
Are you surprised that they got the Beach Boys?
No, they need money. Sorry.
They've suffered an incredible loss. You leave the Beach Boys alone.
You asked me.
Thank you so much for joining us this and every week on Monoreel Radio. Monoreel Radio will always be free, but there are many ways that you can support the show. Please give us a rating wherever you listen to your podcast. Join the conversation on social media at Monoreel Radio on all major platforms. Share your favorite episodes with family and friends who may enjoy them. And of course, book your next trip with Jackie. Links to everything can be found at monoreelradio.com. We all get one story. Make yours a magical one.
On behalf of Monoreel Radio, we'd like to thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the movies, the stuff dreams are made of.